All right, as more and more drugs are being trafficked into the country over the border, drug overdose death rates are also skyrocketing. Check this out. Over 96,700 people die from drug overdoses in a year. 72% of opioids are a factor in 7 out of 10 of every overdose death. And those drug overdoses have killed nearly 1 million people since 1999. Our next guest says there's no end in sight for the drug trafficking. Here to discuss is former acting DHS Secretary Chad Wolf. Chad, lots to get to in this one, but you say this is a problem. It's going to get bigger?
Well, it's absolutely going to get bigger because what we see from this administration is not really having a plan in place to deal with the current crisis or the crisis after Title 42 is removed. So unless they're going to get serious about enforcing the law, about bringing deterrence back into that system, then you're going to continue to see these astronomically high numbers of illegal apprehensions, of illegal narcotics coming across the border, the human trafficking. All these numbers continue to rise month after month after month. So until they get serious about this, they put policies and procedures in place to actually deal with this, to actually go after the cartels, then you're going to continue to see these numbers continue to spike out of control.
Yeah, Chad, I was looking at a map of the United States, and you might expect it, but there's 6,000 people who have died of fentanyl overdose, or overdoses related to fentanyl in California. 3,000 plus in Texas. But get this, up in Ohio, over 4,000, Pennsylvania, over 4,000. So what happens at the border doesn't stay at the border.
Well, you took the words right out of my mouth. I think that's important for every American and the American public writ large to really understand is what is occurring along that border does not stay in border communities. It does not stay in the El Pasos, in the Tucsons, in the McAllen or the Brownsville, South Texas. It goes to places like Chicago and New York and Los Angeles and Seattle and every other small town in between, because this is what the cartels do. This is how they make their money. And this administration, because they're fueling that criminal enterprise by this human trafficking and this human smuggling that we see, the cartels now control more territory, they have more power, and they have more money than they ever had. And we're seeing that with the amount of fentanyl. The amount of overdose deaths that we saw in last year, it topped 100,000. So when we talk about a clear and present threat to the United States and to Americans every single day, it is occurring at this border, and it's from Mexican cartels.
Chad, something interesting that I was reading last week, that I saw that a lot of fentanyl is actually brought in through other drugs. It's actually hidden in those drugs, so people may not even realize what they're taking. What can you tell us about that?
Well, the majority of this actually comes from China, if you can imagine it. So a lot of these precursors are made in China, and then they were, if you go back to 2017, 2018, they were coming into the country, and probably still do to a smaller extent, in express consignment, such as the DHLs and the FedExes of the world. We clamped down on that during the Trump administration, so the majority are now being funneled through Mexico, and again, coming across that border in numbers that we have never seen before. And it's very small doses. It's very easy to smuggle, whether it's on a person, it's in a vehicle, or some other conveyance coming across that border. So it's very hard to detect. It's very hard to find. And so while we're apprehending large amounts that we've never seen before, you really have to be concerned about the amount that's getting away, because we know that Customs and Border Protection just really apprehend and come into contact with a small percentage of what's actually coming across that border every day.
You've negotiated a lot of things in Washington. And you know that when they recognize there's a problem and feel like there's a political expediency to doing it, they actually do something. How come nothing is happening along the border?
Well, it's such a great question. I think that's what a lot of people are scratching their heads and saying, and looking at a crisis for 15 months and saying, why don't we try to change that? So I think what the administration and what many liberals in Congress would have you believe is it's just a matter of managing that crisis, that if we process people quickly and humanely, then the system works. And I would say that is still a very broken system. You need to bring some deterrence back in. You need to deter the illegal behavior. If you have over 221,000 illegal apprehensions in one 30-day period, That's 220,000 individuals that said it's okay to break the law and for me to cross that border illegally. You've got to draw some consequences in there. And I think just recently we heard a Biden administration official say we need to start reimposing an immigration consequence. Well, that says it all. That says that they stopped imposing an immigration consequence at some point during the past 15 months. And I will say it was probably on day one. And so that's what we need to get back to. And I'm glad they've recognized that. I would ask them, where have they been for the last 15 months?
Yeah,
Great point. Chad Wolf, thanks so much for being here with us.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Coming up, Russia celebrates their Victory Day today. How might that influence the ongoing war with Ukraine? We get the latest on the ground in Ukraine after this.